We often think of slavery as something that belongs in the past, a brutal system abolished long ago. But what if I told you that a new form of slavery exists today, and most of us are caught in it without even realizing? It doesn't come with chains or whips. It comes with salaries, benefits, job titles, and calendar invites. It smiles at you through productivity apps and praises you for your hustle. It's the slavery of work, not just labor, but life defined by labor. We aren't forced to work at gunpoint. Instead, we're convinced that work is where our meaning comes from, our identity, even our value as human beings. And this illusion is so pervasive that questioning it feels almost sacrilegious. But we must question it, because when you peel back the layers, you start to see the truth. Work has quietly colonized your time, your mind, your soul. And the cost of that colonization is your freedom. Let's start with time. Time is the currency of life. It's the one resource you can never get back. And yet, most people give the majority of their waking hours to someone else's agenda, someone else's profit, someone else's dream. You spend your best energy solving problems that don't belong to you. You're compensated just enough to stay, but never enough to escape. And we call this normal. We call this success. But what is success if it leaves you permanently exhausted, spiritually numb, and too busy to ask what you're really here for? Work has become the default setting of modern life. We work to live, but we also live to work. Vacations are short. Weekends vanish. And even in our off hours, we're never truly off. We check emails, we stress about deadlines, we carry the mental weight of our jobs like invisible shackles. If someone else owned 70% of your time, would you not call that ownership?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
And then there's identity. Ask someone who they are, and they'll often respond with what they do. I'm a lawyer. I'm a designer. I'm a manager. But these aren't identities, they're roles. Costumes worn in the theater of capitalism. Yet we internalize them so deeply that we forget who we were before the job. As children, we didn't dream of being productive, we dreamed of being alive. But somewhere along the line, we were taught that our worth depends on our output, that if we're not producing, we're wasting space. And so we begin to measure ourselves not by joy or truth or growth, but by efficiency. This is the psychological prison of modern work. It doesn't just take your time, it takes your self-concept. Who are you when you're not being useful? And why does that feel uncomfortable to ask? The most disturbing part is that we're not even forced into this system, we're conditioned to love it. The culture of hustle, the glorification of grind, the endless worship of productivity, it's all propaganda that turns exploitation into aspiration. We admire the CEO who sleeps 4 hours a night. We envy the influencer who monetizes every moment. We feel guilty for resting. But who benefits from this mindset? Not you, not your family, not your soul. The system benefits. Because a person who equates rest with laziness will never stop performing. A person who finds identity in their job will never question the job. And a person who sees work as sacred will gladly sacrifice everything else on its altar. What if burnout isn't a personal failure but a logical outcome of a system that was never designed for your well-being? Now let's talk about fear. The fear of not working is one of the most paralyzing forces in modern life. Not just because of financial instability, but because of the existential void that opens when you stop. We fear stillness. We fear unstructured time. We fear asking, what would I do if I didn't have to do anything? because that question threatens the entire architecture of our lives. It exposes how little we've cultivated passions, relationships, or inner worlds outside of work. The system keeps you afraid of stopping because stopping might wake you up. It might lead you to realize that you've spent years climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. If you lost your job tomorrow, would you lose yourself too? And what about freedom? We're told we're free because we can choose our careers, switch jobs, or start businesses. But that's not freedom, that's selection within captivity. Real freedom is the ability to choose how you spend your life. And most of us don't have that. We're trapped in cycles of debt, expectation, and social comparison. We delay our dreams until retirement. We postpone life until someday. But someday is a lie. Someday never arrives. And by the time you're free to live, you're often too tired, too disillusioned, or too habituated to know how. Your work has trained you to survive, not to live. And survival is not freedom. It's just a more polite form of slavery. What would you do with your life if survival wasn't the main goal? Even our dreams have been hijacked. We dream of success, but often it's just a more luxurious form of captivity. A bigger office, a higher title, a fancier brand of exhaustion. We dream of retiring early, but not to pursue wisdom or art or love, but to escape, to finally breathe. But shouldn't life be more than something we endure until we can retire from it? Shouldn't freedom be part of the journey, not just the reward at the end? The philosopher Thoreau said, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation." That desperation is still with us only now. It wears a business suit and carries a laptop. What if your dream is just a more socially acceptable version of your cage? So here we are, living in a society where work has quietly taken over our lives, not by force, but by seduction. We've been framed to believe that constant labor is noble, that exhaustion is honorable, that busyness is proof of value. But it's a lie. A beautiful, socially reinforced, highly profitable lie. And the only way to break it is to ask the questions that society avoids, and to redefine success, to reclaim your time, to remember that you are not your job. You are not your output. You are not your LinkedIn profile. You are a living, breathing, feeling, thinking, wondering, dreaming human being. And your life, your actual life, is happening now. Not after the promotion. Not on the weekend. Not at retirement. Now. Well, again now. The illusion of choice, how work rebrands control as freedom. We live under the illusion that we've chosen this life, that we've selected our jobs, our careers, our schedules, so we must be free. But freedom isn't about having a menu of options. It's about being able to choose without coercion, without fear, and without being psychologically programmed to pick what harms you. And when you look closely, you begin to see a disturbing pattern. Most of our choices are designed. The education system trains us for work. The economy rewards compliance. The culture celebrates overwork. Even the people we admire, entrepreneurs, innovators, influencers, are often just more elaborate versions of the same game. The system gives us pre-approved dreams and then applauds us for chasing them. But here's the truth: if your choices are manufactured, your freedom is an illusion. Are you living your life or just selecting from a script written by someone else? Let's break it down. From a young age, we're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? But the answers we're given are all roles that serve the machine: doctor, lawyer, engineer, CEO. No one asks, what kind of life do you want? Or what kind of soul do you want to have? We're taught to choose careers, not character. And so we spend decades optimizing the wrong variable: status, salary, security, while neglecting the deeper metrics: peace, presence, purpose. Even when we follow our passion, we're encouraged to monetize it. Turn your art into content. Turn your hobby into a side hustle. Turn your soul into a product. And just like that, even our rebellion becomes profitable. What's the difference between freedom and a trap that feels good? Then there's the myth of independence. The idea that if you work hard enough, you can be your own boss. But what most people discover is that self-employment often feels like self-enslavement. Instead of one boss, you now have hundreds of clients, customers, algorithms, expectations. You're still beholden to the same metrics: output, efficiency, engagement. You're still waking up to perform, to produce, to prove your worth. The only difference is that now the cage looks fancier. Maybe you work from a beach. Maybe you wear hoodies instead of suits. But psychologically, you're still trapped in the same loop. Do more, be more, earn more, repeat. If you can't stop working without guilt, are you really free or just a well-treated prisoner? The system also traps us through fear. It tells us that without work, we are nothing. That we'll be broke, irrelevant, forgotten. That we must constantly stay ahead, keep grinding, level up. But fear is not freedom. It's a leash. And the irony is, the people at the top, the ones we imagine to be most free, are often the most bound. Because the higher you climb, the more you have to maintain. The more you own, the more owns you. The more visible you are, the more you have to perform. So we build these towers of success, only to realize they're made of glass. One slip, and everything shatters. What if the thing you're chasing is the very thing that's keeping you from yourself? Even our language betrays us. We say things like earning a living, as if life is something you must buy. We talk about spending time like it's currency. We say time is money, which is one of the most dangerous lies ever told. Time isn't money. Time is life. And when you equate the two, you start making decisions that are financially logical but existentially suicidal. You trade years for a salary. You miss your child's childhood for a promotion. You sacrifice your health, your relationships, your creativity, all for what? A few numbers in a bank account? A title on a business card? A plaque on a wall? What does it profit a person to gain the world but lose their soul and call it a career? The system works because it disguises itself as opportunity. It gives you enough choices to feel autonomous, but not enough to be truly free. It lets you switch jobs, but not question the concept of jobs. It lets you change lanes, but not exit the highway. And so you keep moving, thinking motion equals progress, while the destination never actually changes. You're not living, you're accelerating. But toward what? Retirement? A vague promise of rest that may never come. Or worse, an identity crisis when you finally stop and realize you don't know who you are without the work. What's the point of speed if you're driving in circles? So what's the way out? It starts with radical honesty. You must interrogate the story you've been sold about work, worth, and identity. You must ask not just what do I do, but why do I do it? Who benefits? What am I sacrificing? And is the trade worth it? You must reclaim your time, not just minutes and hours, but the deeper sense of time, your seasons, your rhythms, your soul's unfolding. You must learn to sit in stillness without panic, to value being without the need to be useful, to build a life where rest is not a reward but a right. This isn't about quitting your job, it's about quitting the mindset that says your job is who you are. Can you imagine being valuable without being busy? This is the beginning of a philosophical rebellion, a re-enchantment of life beyond labor, a remembering that you are not here to be a cog in someone else's machine. You are not here to endlessly optimize yourself for productivity. You are not here to trade your essence for efficiency. You are here to be truly, deeply, fully. And being cannot be monetized. It can only be lived. The Great Reclamation, how to take back time, identity, and meaning from the economy of work. If we want to break free from the new slavery of work, not just intellectually, but practically, we have to go beyond critique. We must reclaim. Reclaim what? Time, identity, meaning. These are the treasures quietly stolen from us by a system that repackages our existence into productivity units. But here's the secret no one tells you. The system doesn't need to be overthrown with violence or protest. It collapses the moment enough people stop feeding it their attention, their energy, their belief. The moment you say, no more, not with anger, but with clarity. The moment you choose to create a life that isn't optimized for output, but for aliveness. And while it sounds radical, it begins with something small yet revolutionary, the decision to own your time. Reclaiming time means refusing to treat your life like a transaction. It means recognizing that every hour you give to something is an hour you'll never get back, and asking, is this worthy of my soul? You start by creating sacred space in your schedule, time that is not monetized, not optimized, not even explained. Time that exists for reflection, creation, wandering stillness. And you'll notice something strange. At first, it feels uncomfortable, aimless, even wrong. That's the symptom of your conditioning. You've been trained to see rest as laziness, slowness as failure, silence as waste. But these are the very ingredients of wisdom. You cannot hear your deeper self when your life is a constant meeting. You cannot find your purpose in the margins. You must make time for it on purpose. Ask yourself, if time is the stage where your life is performed, why are you letting someone else write the script? Then comes the reclamation of identity. This isn't about quitting your job or moving to the mountains unless that's your truth. It's about disentangling who you are from what you do. It's about remembering that you are not a brand. You are not a role. You are not your LinkedIn bio. You are a human being with depth, contradictions, dreams, fears, longings. And when you stop treating your job as a mirror of your worth, you begin to see yourself more clearly. You realize that your creativity, your empathy, your curiosity, these were never meant to be monetized. They were meant to be lived. And yes, you may still work, but now it's a means, not a master. You serve it, it does not define you. Can you sit with yourself with nothing to prove and still feel whole? The third and perhaps hardest reclamation is meaning. We've been taught that meaning comes from success, from climbing, achieving, winning. But meaning is not found in the applause of others. It's found in alignment, in knowing that your actions match your values, that your days reflect your soul, A person sweeping streets with love and presence can live a more meaningful life than a CEO chasing a hollow empire. Meaning isn't about scale, it's about sincerity. When your life becomes centered around what is true for you, even the smallest acts become sacred. You don't need to change the world. You need to stop betraying yourself. What would your life look like if you stopped outsourcing meaning and started creating it? And this isn't just about philosophy. It's about power. Because a person who owns their time, their identity, and their sense of meaning cannot be manipulated. They are immune to propaganda. They are not swayed by status games. They are not addicted to approval. They become dangerous not in a violent way, but in a sovereign way. Dangerous to systems built on fear. Dangerous to cultures built on conformity. Dangerous to economies that depend on your perpetual dissatisfaction. This is why reclaiming your life is the most subversive act you can commit in a world that wants to own you without asking. What if the most powerful revolution isn't external but internal? So how do you begin? You start with one simple but brave act. You pause. You carve out even 10 minutes a day to listen not to the noise of the world, but to the quiet truth inside you. You ask questions that have no quick answers. What do I want beyond survival? Who am I beyond my roles? What would I do if I didn't need to be impressive? And then you act on the answers, even in small ways. You spend time with people who remind you of who you are, not who you're supposed to be. You create without trying to sell. You rest without earning it. You walk away from things that pay well but cost too much of your soul. You begin to live like you're already free, because in many ways you are. You just forgot. The truth is, slavery today doesn't look like shackles. It looks like subscriptions, like deadlines, like lifestyle inflation. It looks like a calendar so full, there's no room left for you. But freedom isn't something you wait for. It's something you practice. Every time you say no to the unnecessary. Every time you choose presence over performance. Every time you remember that your life belongs to you. That's the beginning of the great reclamation. Not a rebellion fueled by rage, but a quiet revolution powered by remembering. And so I leave you with this final question. Not to answer quickly, but to carry with you like a seed. If you weren't afraid, and you weren't conditioned, and you weren't being watched, how would you live your life?